Welcome to another video. That's the number 3. That's the third video where I'm talking about main movement variations. We discussed about the squats, the bench press first, the squats, and today we're gonna do the deadlifts, and we're gonna talk about exercises that you can do to strengthen your deadlift that are not exactly a deadlift. It's just a variation. You can enrich the exercise with so many movements, and why not throw them into your weekly or monthly program. So let's talk about this. Number 1, deadlift with chains. Much like the squats or the bench press, the chains in the deadlift will help you use heavier loads without using straight weight, which means, as always, like I said, like I discussed in the squat video, using 25, 30, 35% of the weight that you were gonna use. Let's say if I'm pulling 550 from the floor pounds, you can use like 35 up to 35% of that and reduce that weight from the straight weight. You can use the chain weight. What the chain weight does is, what the chains do is they progressively get heavier as you lock out. So you're not really doing that weight, but they do help with the nervous system. If you keep it training 90, 95%, 85, 90, 95%, even 100% with straight weight, you cannot do that weekly. Or you can if you're taking a shitload of stuff, but it's not recommended. It's not the smart way to do something long term, because if you're willing to do powerlifting for 3 to 5 to 7 to 8 years, you can knock yourself out. If you're trying to do a decade to 2 decades, which is I'm on my 2nd decade, not the smartest way to go. So the chains, like I said, but keep in mind they are for people who want to go heavy more often. Now you can always drop the weight and do straight weight all the time. There's so many different kinds of programming that I'm not saying that you have to add chains, but it's a great variation, and why not try it? Number 2, deadlifts against bands, which means the bands are pulling from the floor. Now this is another great exercise. It definitely will make you faster. The chains, not so much. The bands are constantly pulling, so they force you to be more consistent, be more explosive, be more, the bands really made me quicker. They just made me stronger and quicker. Number 3, the future method, where the bands are pulling from the ceiling or the top of the power cage. We always use the power cage, so you can use the bands. Like I said before in the squat video, if I remember well, you can use a luggage scale, the little ones with a hook. You can pull it down and see how much tension you need. In my case, for my strength levels, it was always about 35%. It was always, I think it was the purple band and the green band. Not like the super thick bands, not like the blue and the really big ones, the orange ones. They take a lot of weight off. So to me, it was always, 35% resistance, accommodating resistance, and it really, really helps, because as you're looking out, the bands are almost not helping anymore. It just takes just a few pounds, and it gets really heavy really fast. Past the lockout, you're like 75% true weight, and then you lock out to almost 100%, maybe 90-95% of the true weight that you were trying to pull. And this is a great exercise. I think Louis named it the future method. I think, if I remember well, they took it from the Soviets, but I cannot, I cannot, it's not a guaranteed. I don't know if they indeed take it from the Soviets, but it's definitely an old exercise, and it's called the future method because, like Louis said, you're doing weights right now that you'll be doing in the future, because you cannot handle the straight weight at that time, so you're using the bands to accommodate. Number 4, block pulls. You could do them mid-shin, which is recommended. You can do it under the knee, which is pretty high. I usually do my block pulls because I compete in the static monsters. So I guess I can say I'm an amateur strongman. And I usually do them mid-shin or a little higher. I don't want to pull right under the knee all the time, because it's easier to pull heavier, and it's not realistic. The static monsters deadlift, we do the wheels, like the fat bar. It's a fat bar, and it's, I would say, 4th pin in the power cage. To me, for my height, I'm 6'1", so it's I want to do them a little lower. The block pulls are fantastic because They also help you. You can still bend the bar from the blocks, and you can train, you can overload. You can go a little bit heavier, so you're training your CNS as much as your lockout, because if you have a weak lockout, the block pulls will help you, because you're starting higher, obviously. Number 5, and this is harder than the block pulls, the pin pulls. 3rd, 4th, and 5th pin, like we just mentioned, the pin pulls are tough. I mean, you're starting, the bar most likely will be bent from the weight, most likely, and you're starting, it's like pulling something that is immovable. You need to not like jack it up. When I pull my deadlifts from the floor or with chains, I'm very explosive. With the pin pulls, when I try to be very explosive, I failed. You need to kind of like pull back, up and backwards, like kind of you're falling, but you don't want to tug the bar. It's also terrible for your spine because there's no bend in the bar. The bar is already bent. It's a very, very stiff feeling when you pull it explosively. So be smart. It will definitely help you get stronger. Number 6, the trap bar or hex bar or football bar or whatever. And I'm not an expert on this, but I think they called it a football bar because football players use that kind of deadlift as much as basketball. You can see all the NBA guys doing that stuff. It's a great movement because it also helps you overload. I mean, you're definitely gonna do more weight than you would do from the floor with straight weight, because the handles are parallel to your body. It's not the bar that's in front of you. So you got the weight. If you can position yourself properly, which is because I always do posterior chain when I'm doing my deadlifts, I want to feel the weight towards my ankles and heels. I don't want to feel the weight on my toes, definitely not. So as you go down and you position yourself, I try to see where my ankles are, or midfoot is where the handles are, the middle of the handle, where my hand is going. That's pretty much, depending on your leverage, obviously, that's pretty much where you want to be. And it's a good exercise. You can put it on blocks. You can walk with it. It's just, great exercise overall. And it's safer, I dare say. It's safer for your spine because you're in a better position to stand up with it. Number 7, the Smith machine deadlifts, which is what I was forced to do since 2019 and 2020 in the gym that I'm training at. Sometimes, not all the time, but especially 2020, I didn't have the mats to pull from the floor. It was a bit of a mess, but I pulled from the Smith machine, conventional and sumo. I used wooden blocks that were, I would say, 4 or 5 inches in thickness. They were about 10-12 centimeters in height, I guess. And I would spread them out for my sumo pulls, and I would use one of the blocks for my conventional pulls. And these are, that is a stiff deadlift. Not a stiff-legged deadlift, but the bar in the Smith machine is so stiff. You need to be smart. You need to have your shins positioned perfectly. Like you cannot pull that bar super explosively. You're gonna suffer, and you're gonna, you don't want to injure yourself. So, but I'm not gonna say it helps. It's just an honorable mention because they did help me stay in relative shape. Because at some point last year, I pulled from the floor again after like a year. I can't even remember, 15, 16 months, and I pulled like 450, which is, shit weight, but it's not as bad if you consider my best deadlift being like, honestly can't remember, like 550 in competition, 535, something like that. So I'll take it. If you told me you're not pulling from anywhere, then I'd be super fucked. So it did help keep me in shape, but I'm not recommending. But if you do have a Smith machine only in a commercial gym, there are ways that you can train to stay at some kind of level of strength when it comes to your deadlift and you're a competitive powerlifter and strongman. Because to me, the deadlift is a must. I need to pull something from any height. I need to. Let's see. Number 8, the good morning exercise. This is an exercise I'm not doing anymore because of my spinal issues. It hurts very, very much to bend over. And I was very strict with my good mornings. I would bend over to almost like parallel to the ground. You see what I mean? And but if you're careful with it and you use like light percentages, you don't need to max out. It is a great exercise. You bend your legs a little bit to stay balanced. It's just a hinge. It literally is a hinge in the posterior chain. It's a great exercise. I don't think I've ever done it with a straight bar, and if I did, it was very light, like a couple of plates. For me, it was always easier to use the safety bar and throw it back towards my traps and behind my traps. So as I'm going forward, the weight is not hitting my neck. You don't want any stress on your neck. Not that way at least. So the good morning is a great exercise as well for posterior chain, and it does help. I would say it helps more with the conventional, but it does help the sumo as well. Number 9, the deficit deadlift. This is another exercise I admittedly gave up on after my spinal issues in the end of 15. I did it a little bit in 16, but it was incredibly painful for me to execute. But recently I started doing it again, and I noticed, although I have a gut, I have a belly, and it's difficult. I'm at like 290 pounds. I mean, I know I'm not a huge guy, but for my height, I mean, I'm pretty thick. Let's see, or fat. Either way, you can take it either way. It doesn't matter. And so the belly's kind of in my way, but I realized that if I spread my legs just slightly, not like Brian's show width, because Brian is massive, but if I spread my legs just a little bit more towards my shoulders, then I can have my belly like in between in a way, right? And I can scooch down and stand up with it, and it felt fantastic. I did it, I mean, a few months ago anyway. It's a lot of fun, and I'm really thinking about throwing it back in there. And it's an exercise where you definitely are forced to bend your legs more and use your legs more. I mean, it's a great exercise overall. It's an exaggerated movement, and as you can start light. Of course, you can use it. I usually use it after my heavy session or repetition method or session or whatever, but you can use it afterwards, and it's a burner. I mean, it's you'll catch fire guaranteed. And after that, you can next week, or you can start from the deficit, and then you can move on to pulling from the floor or from the blocks, and it feels like you're elevated all of a sudden. Especially from the floor, obviously, because on the blocks you're elevated. Let's see. Number 10, the Romanian deadlifts. I like to do these. You can do them with kettlebells or dumbbells. I have dumbbells. It's something that I prescribe to, I dare say, all of my online clients. It's a very, very good exercise. I try to keep if it's a kettlebell, I try to keep my fists almost mid shin, not lower than that, and you stand up again with it. The way I tell my clients, the way I do it, I don't keep my butt flat. I stick my ass out, kind of like in the squat, and then I use mostly my upper body. I don't bend my legs too much with this, because you want to strengthen the posterior chain. Erectors, lower back, glutes, hamstrings. It works your legs, it works your quads, but not as much as the deficit deadlift. Definitely not. But it's a great exercise, and I think if I'm seeing correctly on my list, it's the first exercise that doesn't include a bar. So that's a bit of an outsider. I wanted to cover as many exercises as I can with an actual bar or a safety bar here, because there's we got the other exercise here. We got the trap bar and the good mornings. So that's it. Honorable mention, I need to mention the pull-throughs, which I've recorded in previous videos. I didn't think I should include a video. I mean, you can Google it. You can find there's so many videos about the pull-throughs. Great exercise. You will definitely catch fire on this one as well. I always keep it for the end. If I'm doing like a deadlift, leg press, and then I'm gonna do the pull-throughs, and I'm pretty much done. I do my abs. I usually do my abs standing. You're done for the day. Another great for posterior chain, glutes especially. You need to squeeze your glutes as you're standing up, as you're looking out. Another honorable mention, the leg press. If you're not leg pressing at all, or if there is a leg press and you're not using it during your deadlift days, you should. It helps, especially with a conventional, but it does help with the sumo as well. And I've noticed it since I started doing the leg press again in the last year or two. And the hip thrusts, which is an exercise I admittedly cannot do because of the setup in my gym. I cannot lay, there's no setup for me to just support my neck anywhere, or my upper back, and do the hip thrust from the floor. But it is a fantastic exercise, and it's an exercise I would recommend. I'm not an expert on it. I have done it. Unfortunately, I cannot do it right now. I'm just being truthful, So these are the exercises. It's 10 exercises you can pick to throw in your regimen, and we got 3 honorable mentions. I mean, that is a lot of work. And comment down below if I forgot anything. I'm sure I forgot. I mean, there's so many exercises you can do to strengthen the posterior chain, your deadlift. But I just wanted to cover the movements that can be done with a bar and one with dumbbells. I hope you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel, and thank you for watching.